Alright, today we're doing long division of polynomials. Alright, so we have to divide using long division. That's why we reviewed it just yesterday. And just to let y'all know, I might make a mistake too. It's long division. I'm human. I might mess up too. So just bear with me and we will get it where it needs to be. Alright, so starting out, number one, we have x cubed plus 5x squared minus 7x plus 2 divided by x minus 2. So this one, we don't draw an L like synthetic division. We're literally doing long division. All right, we're going to need a lot of space. Make some space right here. Long division. We write this is obviously on the outside x minus 2. All right. The first one comes inside x cubed plus 5x squared minus 7x plus 2. It's important that y'all watch this video and you practice a lot. We need to know how to do this. And the best way to know how to do this is a lot of practice. It's long. It's literally called long division. You can mess up along the way. I'm probably going to mess up. So you have to practice, practice, practice. All right? We know, just like in synthetic division, our final answer is going to be 1 power down from the dividend. So this, our highest exponent here, is x cubed. So our final answer when we divide, the highest exponent is going to be x squared. All right? So this is what we do. We start just like when we did long division review yesterday. We see the first one, x cubed, and we're going to divide it by this x right here. So this x cubed divided by x, we can't divide it by 2 because they're not like terms. You gotta think about it like that. That's the best way I can explain it. That's kind of a little trick. Okay, so we know x cubed divided by x, remember, picture this as x to the first, that's going to be x squared. Because we know, this is where you have to use your brain, we know x squared, looking at this, times x over here would be x 3, and that's going to cancel out. We want to be able to cancel out the first one as we go across this line. Okay, that'll make sense in a second. Just bear with me. So we see that x squared times x will be x3. So we bring that down here, just like in long division. Okay, that's why we did that yesterday. Then we multiply the x squared by this 2 to get our next number that we're going to put under this 5x squared. All right, so x squared times negative 2 is negative 2x squared. If you don't know where I got that from, pause it, go back, look at it. All we did was we took the first number. I'm going to be making a lot of dots here. We took this first number term, we divided it by x because it's a like term, and we got x squared because x squared times x is x cubed, and we want that gone. Because now when we subtract, just like in long division, that will cancel out, and then we'll be left with 3x squared, and then we'll move on and do the next step. But before I move on, I want to make sure you know. So we canceled the first one out, then we took x squared. We already multiplied it by x, so we wouldn't do that again. We take x squared and multiply it by negative 2 to get negative 2x squared, which we will subtract or add. Technically, we're combining this. This is just a negative. All right. We get 3x squared. Or excuse me, like I said, I make mistakes too. We will always subtract this like we did here. See how we're subtracting it? We're subtracting here. So actually, this becomes a positive. So 5x squared minus negative 2x squared, or 5x squared plus 2x squared, is 7x squared, because we always subtract. I said it backwards. Again, I apologize. It's long division. I'm going to slow it down. Okay? What we do here, after we multiplied, I'm going to write it over here. After we multiplied x squared times x, we got x cubed. So we know we always subtract. This is what we'll always do. When we multiplied x squared times the negative 2, and we put it under the 5x squared, so x squared times negative 2 is negative 2x squared. All right? We see that we're going to pretend like these are in parentheses. We're going to subtract for both times. So on the first one, that's easy. X cubed minus a positive x cubed is just 0. But when we look at the second one, we have 5x squared minus negative 2x squared. So we know when there's two negatives next to each other, they become positive. And that's where we get our 7x squared from. Again, sorry about that, but that's key, okay? If what you multiply by becomes a negative, then you need to know that a negative times a negative becomes a positive. So when you combine it, you get 7x squared. All right? Moving on, we're going to do the same thing. Now, this is our next one. We're going to divide it by this x to get our next number. 7x squared divided by x is just a positive 7x. Then we take that number. We already messed with this x, so we're going to take that number, this 7x, and we're going to multiply it by negative 2. All right? Because we know we're going to subtract, and then we're going to move this negative 7x down, and we're going to multiply 7x times negative 2 to get negative 14x. All right? And where I got this from was this 7x times x comes back down here because we want to cancel that out. And then 7x times negative 2 equals negative 14. So really you're doing both. You just want to cancel out the first part. Okay? 7x squared minus 7x squared is again 0. Now we have negative 7x minus negative 14x. Again, that will turn this positive. So negative 7x plus 14x is a positive 7x. All right, so that's all gone. Up here, that was all gone. So we move on. We're almost done. So we have 7x divided by x, and we get plus 7. Then we're going to multiply it back to both of them, because the first one is just going to go under here and cancel this out. Obviously, 7 times x is 7x. All right. And then 7 times negative 2, we'll do the second one. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. All right. We drop this 2 down, and then we're subtracting this whole thing. So 7x minus 7x is 0. That's what we want. 2 minus negative 14. Again, that turns it positive. So 2 plus 14 is 16. All right. We notice there's nothing else to divide by. Okay, there's no next number. This is going to be our remainder. We did this same exact problem with synthetic division. Okay, so we know our remainder at the end is going to be whatever the remainder is. So this, in this case, it's 16 over this polynomial right here, x minus 2. All right? So our final answer is x squared plus 7x plus 7 minus 16 over x minus 2. Like I said, I know I made some mistakes here. I slipped up, and you're going to do that too. All it takes is practice. I'm not perfect at this either. I'm going to do one more because, as you can see, one problem alone took about 9.5, 10 minutes. So I'm going to do one more. All right? I'm going to try not to slip up because I want y'all to get it. And you have to practice, practice, practice. Make sure you do the worksheet. Make sure you turn it in. Rewatch parts of the video where I didn't mess up and see what you can get from that. Okay, I'm going to try to do number 2 and hopefully run into no problems. All it takes is practice. All right. Actually, I'm going to skip number 2 because it's pretty long. I want y'all to skip it as well. I want want us to do number 3 together because it's a little bit shorter and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want you to be able to do this. Like I said, I make mistakes as well. And as you can see, it says use zeros as placeholders for any missing powers. As we see for number 3, it has x cubed, but then it skips x squared and goes straight to 17x. So we got to write placeholders. So we know how to start this, write it out. X cubed, this time plus 0x squared, because we got to use zeros as a placeholder. Then minus 17x, then plus 32, and that's going to be divided by x plus 5. All right. Again, we know to start one power down from the dividend, or again, if you just use common sense, you know we need to divide this x cubed divided by x, and we get x squared. Then we multiply it by both to get our two numbers here and here. X squared times x is x cubed. That's what we want. And then x squared times 5 is 5x squared. And then we know we're going to subtract both. All right? It's important that you remember the symbols. So far, I'm doing well. See, it took practice. It took me doing one of them to not be rusty at this. I haven't done this in a while. Okay? So x cubed minus x cubed is 0. That's what we want. Then 0 minus, don't forget that it's a minus, not a plus, 0 minus 5x squared is negative 5x squared. Okay? Then we bring down this negative 17x. All right? And then we divide negative 5x squared divided by this x. So we take this number divided by x, like always, and we get negative 5x. That's easy. We just took an x away. That's the easy part. Okay? So we know, and then we're going to multiply this number, this negative 5x we just got, by the x and by the 5 to get our two numbers here. That's all we're doing. Okay? Don't overthink it there. I did, and that's why I messed up on the first one. So negative 5x times x is what we want, negative 5x squared. We always want to try to cancel that out. So if you're asking how do I keep figuring out what this number is and what this number is when dividing it, just use common sense. We need to cancel this number out. So how do we get it to become negative 5x squared? All right, and then we do the next one, negative 5x times positive 5, that's negative 25x. All right, then we are subtracting both. All right, so remember, negative 5x squared minus negative 5x squared, this becomes a positive, and that becomes 0. That's what we want. All right, and then negative 17x, I'm looking over here, negative 17x minus negative 25x, or plus 25x, because that turns into a positive, because a negative next to a negative makes a positive. That's 8x. All right. Now we bring down this 32. We divide this 8x divided by x, and we get plus 8. That's easy. All right. Then we multiply the 8 times x to get 8x. And then we multiply the 8 times 5 to get 40. All right. Then we subtract both. I'm running out of room, so I'm going to write tiny. Again, 8x minus 8x is 0, and then 32 minus 40 is negative 8. We see negative 8 is our remainder because there's nothing else left to do. So we come up here and we write it. So our final answer is x squared minus 5x plus 8, and then our remainder is minus 8 over this little formula right here, the divisor, x plus 5. And that is how we do it. That time I didn't make a mistake. Okay, all it takes is practice. Remember, you're starting here with x cubed. I'm going to say all the steps for you. Okay, I know we're running long, but x cubed divided by this x equals x squared right here. Again, there's no secret to get to this number right here. You got to say, how can I get this times this first x to cancel this out, okay? And we know when you multiply x's and you multiply exponents, you add the exponents together. So x squared times x, this is x to the first technically, x squared times x to the first is x cubed. That's all we did. Then we multiply x squared again times the next number to get our 5x squared. Then we subtract both. Don't forget to write the big subtraction so you know to subtract both. If you need to help yourself, write them in parentheses. Because remember, if there's a negative here, then you're really going to add it. But there's not a negative here for that one, so we're going to take that away. So x cubed minus x cubed is 0. That's what we want. It has to cancel out because we cannot move on if it doesn't. Then 0x squared, remember we had to use a placeholder, minus 5x squared is negative 5x squared. That's easy. Then we drop down the negative 17x. Then we divide negative 5x squared. Negative 5x squared is here, right here, divided by this x, again, to get negative 5x. Then we take the negative 5x, multiply it back here just to get the number it cancels out with. It should be the same number, 5x squared. Then we take the negative 5x, multiply it by this positive 5, and we get negative 25x. Then we subtract both. Remember, a big subtraction sign to know we subtract both of these. So negative 5x squared minus negative 5x squared, that turns that positive. As we see, turns it positive. Negative 5x squared plus 5x squared is 0, cancels out, that's what we want. And then negative 17x minus negative 25x, again, minus negative, those become positive. So we're adding negative 17x plus 25x is a positive 8x. So we have a positive 8x, and then we bring down the 32 for our last step. 8x right here divided by this x again. We're doing the same thing we've been doing. 8x divided by x is just the number 8. 8 times x, put that 8x here. Then we do this 8 times this 5 to get 40. Then again, we subtract both. 8x minus 8x is 0. We want it to cancel out. But then there's going to be a remainder because 32 minus 40 is negative 8. And we take the negative 8, put it in our remainder. So our final answer is x squared minus 5x plus 8. And then our remainder is negative 8 over x plus 5. All right, like I said, I know it's long. It's literally called long division. You just need to practice, practice, practice. There will be more of this on the review, and I'll go over again. If you have any questions, email me, please. I can try to explain the steps over email or hop on Zoom. I can try my best. All right, like I said, I know you might mess up. So just complete the worksheet. That's why I made this worksheet multiple choice, okay? Let me scroll down and show it to you so you know which one to do. The worksheet you're doing should look like this. See? Multiple choice. I know it's a little bit tricky. Work through it. Please, please, please do it. All right? Thank y'all for bearing with me and listening. Long division, I know it's long. It can be tricky. Just practice, practice, practice. Thank y'all.